Are you looking for a church home? Pandemic crisis may be the best time in the world. Hello. Are you a devout, God-fearing Christian? Have you been injured by progressive social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook? Has your social media account been suspended or even disabled? After the announcement from Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy on July 15th, you may be looking at your computer screen right now, unable to access your friends and family on Facebook, even with an instant message to check up on them during the public health crisis, and saying to yourself, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." Well, fear not. For behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. And the babe born of virgin in Bethlehem may have at least some tangential connection. If, like most evangelical Christians, you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you believe in a Christian worldview, you celebrate traditional family values, and you uphold the sanctity of human life and oppose abortion, like a good Catholic certainly should, you may be familiar with what is called the FACE Act, or the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which was passed by the Congress in 1992 and signed into law by President Bill Clinton because it helped to create buffer zones around abortion mills to prevent sidewalk counselors from trying to save lives and to protect the multi-billion-dollar enterprise of organizations like Planned Parenthood that dehumanizes children by describing them as just a fetus, presents a desperate young woman with what is called a choice to perform just a simple medical procedure, and that provides baby body parts for experimentation to pharmaceutical companies and other scientific research firms to develop products like vaccines that have been mandated in many places across the nation. Well, God works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. And if you have a sincerely held faith belief, you may want to listen further, because as a part of the political compromise that occurred back in the 90s during the passage of the FACE Act, our conservative representatives, knowingly or unknowingly, placed a poison pill that not even the media wanted you to know about. That same legislation that prevents you from blocking the access to an abortion mill also makes it punishable, up to a felony offense, when any person blocks your entry into a place of worship. And this is what attorneys describe as a strict liability crime. A strict liability crime that has placed anti-abortion activists in prison and faced with thousands of dollars in fines. There is simply no affirmative defense. And between the passage of the FACE Act in 1992 to 2008, the beginning of the Obama administration, pro-abortion forces have used a civil provision in that statute to compel persons like yourself to pay them millions of dollars in compensatory and punitive damages for disrupting the flow of their customers to abortion mills, and were successful in court 100% of the time. 100% of the time, practically guaranteed. So what are you waiting for? Any scientist knows that the test of pure science is the ability to replicate results over and over again. And the same is true for law when there is a solid precedent of settled law in the books. So, after being compelled to amend our lawsuit brought against the vaccines in the U.S. District Court in Richmond on July 7th, our amended complaint included a complaint brought against Facebook for blocking our access to what has been described as the safest place for an unvaccinated person to engage in devotional worship, staying at home, and participating in virtual worship. Even the governor, Ralph Northam himself, says the safest place for you to worship today, regardless, is at home, because God is everywhere and you don't need to be in a building. $5,000, for instance, going to church ain't never been better. You may believe that big government has the power in a public health crisis to compel you to close your business. You may believe that big government has the power to tell you to stay at home, to don a facial covering, or even get vaccinated, but does big tech have the power to prevent you from attending devotional worship? There are some novel questions presented under the freedoms of religion that are guaranteed by the First Amendment, particularly in the Free Exercise Clause, especially after the White House informed the American public that they had been targeting specific problematic accounts and posts. But under the FACE Act, if you are a Christian, there is a provision that provides that in lieu of trial, you are entitled under the FACE Act to an award of $5,000 for every instance in which your access to worship has been blocked. $5,000. What are you waiting for? And that includes not just weekly worship attendance, but also attendance at weekly Bible study or any other devotional activities in which you would normally engage, but for a pandemic crisis. If you got a phone, you got a lawyer. So weep no more, because your social media account is not dead and was only sleeping. And if you have a sincerely held faith belief, you need to get yourself a good attorney and enter their courts with praise and thanksgiving, because the gates of hell shall not prevail against Christ's church unless you are ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So go out, find yourself a lawyer, and tell them that Jesus is on the main line, and then tell them what you want. Have you made your decision for Christ? And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. This briefing is unclassified, as you were. My name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for Arlington Public School Board. Let's keep Mike Webb away from our schools. Honest. Carry on. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
He has not exercised reasonable